My name is Winter Caldwell. I'm 32 years old, and I used to think I was pretty hard to fool. I work in network security. My job is literally to spot vulnerabilities before someone exploits them. I can look at a system and tell you exactly where it might break. Somehow I never thought to audit my own relationship. On paper, my life looks solid. I own a small house in the suburbs with a messy front garden and a perfectly organized server closet. I make good money, nothing flashy, just stable. My boyfriend, Ethan, is 30 and works in HR at a mid-sized corporate office. He's the type who posts about company culture and mental health in the workplace on LinkedIn. We met at a friend's wedding. He asked if he could see the photos I'd taken of the ceremony and then spent the rest of the night making me laugh with terrible dance moves. We'd been together 2 years. He stayed at my place 6 nights a week, but he kept his own apartment across town. Work is stressful, he'd said when we first started staying together more. I just need my own space sometimes, a place I can retreat to. Red flag if you're looking from the outside. But I'm not clingy. You say you need space? Fine. Keep your apartment. Pay your rent. I paid my mortgage. We split groceries and dates. I wasn't funding his life, and I wasn't tracking his every move. It felt healthy, adult. The irony is that the whole mess started because his laptop was acting weird. Can I use yours for a bit? He'd asked one weekend. Mine keeps freezing when I try to edit documents. I've got a beast of a laptop for work, so I just shrugged. Sure, as long as you don't touch anything in the winter do not delete folder. He laughed, kissed my temple, and spent half the afternoon at my dining table, typing and occasionally sighing, like the weight of the world was on his shoulders. I didn't think about it again, not until Monday morning. I woke up at 7:30, made coffee, and sat down at the same laptop to start my workday. I opened my browser, and there it was. Instagram, logged in, not to my account, to his. For a second, I just stared at the screen. His profile photo in the corner, his DMs tab open, my cursor hovering uselessly. It's important to say this. I wasn't snooping. I didn't sit down with a mission to find anything. The door was already wide open, and right at the top of his messages was a name I didn't recognize. Sophia. The preview said, "Last night was, I can't stop thinking about you. When can I see you again?" My brain did that thing where it splits in two. One part said, "Close the tab. This isn't your business. He probably has a cousin named Sophia or something." The other part, the part that reads security logs for a living, quietly clicked. The thread expanded. 3 months of messages loaded in, like a timeline of every boundary I didn't know had been crossed. Flirting, inside jokes, heart emojis, plans, photos I wish I could unsee, descriptions of meetups I didn't know about, references to your place and my apartment, and I'll sneak out before he wakes up. I scrolled. My coffee went cold next to me. My hands didn't shake. They just detached. I read the way I'd read an incident report, slowly, carefully. I saw my own name mentioned exactly twice. I can't stay long. Winter thinks I'm at my place tonight. She's been distant. I think my abandonment trauma is acting up. I actually laughed at that. A short, ugly sound in my empty living room. Abandonment trauma. Right. Gradually, I worked my way back to the most recent messages. Last night was amazing. I feel like you're the only one who really sees me. Sent Sunday night. Sunday night, when Ethan told me he needed to crash at his own apartment to meal prep and reset for the week. I checked the timestamp. While I'd been watching a documentary and dozing off alone, he'd been with his ex-girlfriend, because that's who Sophia was. Buried a little further up the chat, there it was. Feels so weird being back in your arms after everything. We always come back to each other. Ex, right. Something inside me went very, very still. The rational part of my brain took over. I opened my work folder, created a new private directory, and started taking screenshots. Every message, every picture, every date. I backed them up to an external drive, then to a cloud folder, then to another. Network security brain, doing what it knew how to do, preserve evidence. When I was done, I logged him out of Instagram, closed the browser, and set my laptop down. It was barely 9 o'clock a.m., and my entire relationship had been reclassified from stable to compromised system. I tried to work. I really did. I answered a few emails. I stared at a firewall rule for 10 full minutes and couldn't remember what I'd changed. Around noon, I gave up, messaged my manager that I'd be working offline, and just paced the hallway. There was this quiet argument happening in my head. You should have seen this coming. How? He kept a whole other life in a separate apartment. He told you he needed space. Apparently, he needed space for Sophia. At 5:45 p.m., headlights rolled into my driveway. I watched Ethan's car pull in like nothing was wrong, like nothing had shifted on the axis of my world. A moment later, the front door opened and he stepped in, balancing a paper bag that smelled like Thai food. "Hey, babe," he called. "I got your usual. Extra spring rolls. They were out of mango sticky rice, but Can we talk for a minute?" I asked. The words came out calmer than I felt. I was still sitting on the couch, laptop closed on the coffee table like a loaded weapon I hadn't decided to use yet. He froze for half a second, then smiled that HR-friendly smile. "Sure." He set the bag down in the kitchen and walked over, dropping onto the couch beside me. "You okay? You sound serious." I looked at him. Really looked. The man who slept beside me, stole my hoodies, kissed my forehead in the mornings. The man who texted me goodnight from the same bed he apparently left to go see someone else. "Who's Sophia?" I asked. The change in his face was microscopic but unmistakable. First shock, then fear, then the quick calculation of someone trying to choose a lie fast enough. "Sophia?" he repeated, frowning. "I don't know. Why?" "Try again," I said quietly. His jaw clenched once. "Seriously, Winter, I don't know what—" "I saw your messages," I cut in. "On my laptop. You left your Instagram open." For a moment, the living room was perfectly silent. Then he stood up abruptly, like he couldn't sit still with the truth that close between us. "You went through my messages?" he demanded. I stared at him. "You left them open on my device." "That's a violation of my privacy," he snapped. "That's not how privacy works," I replied. "Not when you leave it plastered across someone else's screen." He started pacing, fingers digging into his hair. Okay, this looks bad." "It is bad," I said. He stopped, took a breath, and turned to me with a grave seriousness that would have impressed a jury. "But you need to understand something," he said. "This isn't about you." I blinked. "You cheating on me with your ex isn't about me?" "This is about me working through some things," he said, voice low, like he was about to deliver a TED Talk. "My childhood abandonment trauma manifests as this need for validation from multiple sources. Sophia provided a space where I could explore that without judgment. You didn't create a safe space for those needs, Winter. This was a trauma response." For a second, I just stared at him, the words hovering in the air like smoke. "A trauma response." That was the moment I realized I wasn't just dealing with a cheater. I was dealing with someone who thought the right vocabulary could turn betrayal into therapy. Something inside me snapped back into place. Not the part that loved him, the part that loved myself. I reached for my laptop, flipped it open, and turned the dark screen toward him. "Ethan," I said, my voice steady, "let me show you my trauma response." I spun the laptop around and tapped the trackpad. The screen woke up to a neat folder on the desktop, Ethan Receipts. His eyes flicked to the name. I watched the exact second recognition hit him. "Seriously?" he said, a humorless laugh escaping. "You made a folder?" "I work in incident response," I said. "This is an incident." I opened the first screenshot. The chat with Sophia filled the screen. The photo thumbnails, the heart emojis, the timestamp from Sunday night. He stared. Color drained from his face, came back in a blotchy rush, then drained again. If guilt had a loading animation, it would look like that. "You archived my personal messages," he said slowly. "Your affair," I corrected. "I archived your affair." He swallowed. Silence stretched. I could almost hear the gears in his head scraping around for the right justification. "Okay," he said finally, voice controlled. "I'm not going to lie and say this doesn't look bad. It is bad. But you're missing context." I closed the laptop halfway. "Then explain the context where 'last night was amazing' isn't cheating when you told me you were meal prepping alone." He planted his hands on the back of the couch, leaning forward like he was about to moderate a workshop. "This is going to sound harsh, but I need you to hear it without getting defensive." My jaw clenched. "Try me." "This isn't about you being not enough or me being a bad person," he said. "This is about my trauma." There it was again. That word, dragged between us like a shield. "My childhood abandonment issues show up as anxious attachment," he went on. "My therapist says sometimes my system looks for safety in multiple relational spaces. Sophia—" "Your ex," I cut in, "has been part of my attachment system for years," he continued, ignoring me. "When things get overwhelming, my nervous system goes to what feels familiar. You haven't always felt emotionally safe for me, Winter. I don't feel like I can fully express myself with you. With Sophia, I can. So what happened with her was a trauma response, not a betrayal. I let out a slow breath, watching him as if he were a stranger speaking a language he'd memorized phonetically. So when you sleep with your ex, I said, that's healing. When I find out, that's what, growth? You're being really black and white about this, he said. I'm doing what I need to regulate my nervous system. You didn't create a safe space for those needs. I had to find one elsewhere. On Sophia's couch, I said, and bed, and shower apparently. His nostrils flared. This is why I didn't feel safe telling you. You go straight to sarcasm instead of curiosity. Inside, something quiet clicked into place. A lock, maybe. A door. Okay, I said. Let me see if I understand. I stood up, closing the laptop fully and setting it on the table. His eyes followed it nervously, like it might bite him. You had unresolved abandonment trauma, I began, counting on my fingers. You didn't communicate your needs clearly. You chose to sleep with your ex-girlfriend for 3 months without telling me. And when I found out accidentally, you decided the real issue is my tone. I did communicate, he protested. I told you I needed more emotional intimacy. You brushed it off. You told me you were tired and overstimulated from work, I corrected. And then you went and got very stimulated somewhere else. You're twisting this, he said, voice rising. I'm trying to take ownership of my trauma. No, I said, the word landing like a full stop. You're trying to outsource the cost of it. He stared at me, stunned at my calm. I'm not your therapist, Ethan, I said. I'm the person you lied to. Those are different jobs. His voice dropped. So what, you're just kicking me out? Over a trauma response? I let the phrasing sit there, heavy and absurd. Yes, I said, I am. He laughed in disbelief. You can't just throw me out, Winter. I live here. No, you don't. I walked toward the hallway, gesturing for him to follow. He trailed after me, still clutching the edge of indignation. You stay here, I said. You live at your apartment, where your name is on the lease, where your mail goes, where your utilities are. This is my home too, he snapped. We've been cohabiting. That's a thing. Show me one piece of mail with this address on it, I said. One bill, one official anything. He opened his mouth, closed it. That doesn't matter. Cohabitation has legal... Not the way you've done it, I said. You've been a frequent guest with a toothbrush. He spread his arms. I'm here 6 nights a week. That just means you cheated more conveniently, I said. Go pack your things. You're leaving tonight. You can't do this, he insisted. It's abusive to kick someone out when they're in a trauma spiral. Funny, I said quietly. I was just thinking it was abusive to cheat on someone and call it therapy. I walked into the bedroom and pulled open the closet. His clothes hung in a neat section on the left. Shirts, jeans, that one jacket I liked on him. My hand paused on the sleeve out of habit. I moved it anyway, grabbing an armful and tossing them onto the bed. He appeared in the doorway, watching me like I'd started dismantling his sense of self instead of just his shoe collection. Winter, stop, he said. We need to slow down and process. We should sit and talk about how both our wounds contributed to this situation. There is no version of this, I said, throwing his socks into a bag, where you sleep with Sophia and I say, thank you for modeling vulnerability. You're being vindictive, he said. This feels like punishment, not a boundary. That's your nervous system interpreting consequences, I replied. It'll adapt. His eyes flashed. Listen to yourself. You're parroting therapy language now, too. Oh, I'm fluent, I said. I just don't use it to excuse setting things on fire. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I glanced at the screen. 6:45 p.m. I picked it up and started searching my contacts. What are you doing? He asked suspiciously. Calling a locksmith, I said. He stared. You're kidding. I put the phone to my ear. Hi. Yeah, I need my locks changed tonight if possible. Yes, front and back door. 8 o'clock is perfect. When I hung up, he shook his head slowly. That's aggressive. That's efficient, I said. He sank onto the edge of the bed, hands on his knees. For the first time, he looked less angry and more small. I opened up to you about my trauma, he murmured, and you're weaponizing it against me. I'm not weaponizing anything, I said, zipping a bag shut. I'm just declining to be collateral damage. He watched me move around the room, grabbing his hair products, his extra sneakers, the stack of self-help books he always left on my nightstand. This is financial abuse, he tried next. I can't afford to keep my apartment and suddenly furnish another place. You're destabilizing my living situation. You have a living situation, I reminded him. It's 15 minutes away with a lease in your name. I'm not evicting you into the street. I'm sending you back to the home you've had this whole time and used as cover while you cheated. He flinched like I'd hit him. Stop saying cheated like that, he muttered. Like what? I asked. Like it's dirty. It is, I said simply. He followed me as I dragged the first bag down the hall and out the front door. The air outside had cooled, the sunset bleeding faint orange into the sky. I dropped the bag on the lawn. "Winter," he said quietly behind me, voice softer. "Please, I know I messed up, but if you could just be compassionate, we could work through this. A real partner would create space for my healing." I turned to face him, the front of my house between us like a judge. "I did create space," I said. "For 2 years. I gave you my time, my trust, my house. You filled that space with lies. Now I'm creating a new kind of space, one where I don't get lied to." His eyes glistened. "You're going to scar me." An ugly, bitter laugh bubbled up before I could stop it. "Not as much as you spending 3 months in Sophia's bed while telling me you were working late." He opened his mouth, closed it. I carried another bag out, then another. By the time I was done, 4 bags and 2 boxes sat in the grass, little islands of his life waiting to be claimed. He retreated inside and sat on the couch, staring at his phone, thumbs moving rapidly. For 20 minutes, he typed, deleted, called someone, hung up, typed again. I sat on the porch steps, scrolling through nonsense on my own screen just to keep my hands busy. At 7:30 p.m., the doorbell rang. I stood, expecting the locksmith early. Instead, when I opened the door, 3 women stood on my porch, framed by the fading light. Brittany, tall and sharp, in a blazer over leggings. Behind her, Mia and Chloe, faces I recognized from Ethan's brunch photos and Instagram stories, the ones who left fire emojis under his mental health matters posts. "We're here for Ethan," Brittany said, chin lifting. I nodded toward the living room. "He's inside. His stuff's on the lawn." "We know," she said coolly. "We're here to help him, and to tell you you're handling this really poorly." I exhaled through my nose. "Thanks for the feedback. Anything else?" "Ethan told us about his trauma response," she said, "about how you completely invalidated his healing." I looked past her at the neatly lined bags in the grass, at the house whose locks would soon no longer recognize his key. "He told you he cheated?" I asked. "Used his ex as an emotional and physical support system for 3 months without telling me?" "He told us he was exploring his needs in a safe space," Mia chimed in, folding her arms. "And you're punishing him for it." I let their words hang, therapy phrases rearranged into a permission slip. "Interesting interpretation," I said. "This is exactly why people don't feel safe opening up about their trauma," Brittany pressed. "You're making it all about moral judgment instead of understanding the wound underneath." "Here's my understanding," I said, my voice steady. "He had a wound. He chose to treat it by cutting me open. I'm allowed to stop bleeding for him." Chloe shifted awkwardly at that. Brittany's mouth tightened. "We're not leaving without Ethan," she declared. "That's kind of the point," I said. "Take him, and his things, please." They brushed past me into the house, their perfume trailing behind them like a different life. I stayed on the porch, listening to muffled voices inside. "He's so toxic." "She doesn't deserve you." "This is absolutely a trauma response." Every sentence felt like static against the calm in my chest. They made 3 trips, carrying bags and boxes to Brittany's SUV. Ethan avoided my gaze each time, walking quickly between house and car like a shuttle between worlds. On the last trip, he stopped in front of me at the bottom of the porch steps. "I hope you know this is going to ruin me," he said quietly. "No," I said. "This is the part where it stops ruining me." Brittany called from the driver's seat. "Ethan, let's go!" He hesitated. "You could have been part of my healing journey, Winter." "I was," I said. "I'm the part where you learn actions have consequences." He flinched again, then turned away and climbed into the SUV. The door slammed. The engine started. They drove off into the darkening street, his silhouette shrinking in the passenger window. At exactly 8 p.m., the locksmith's van pulled into my driveway. "Evening," the man said, stepping out with a toolkit. "You're Winter?" "I am," I said. "Locks on both doors?" he asked. "Yeah," I replied, glancing at the now empty lawn. "Both, please." As the drill bit into the old deadbolt, metal shavings dusting the welcome mat, I realized something simple and solid. Ethan had wanted me to hold space for his trauma. Instead, I'd made space for myself. The house felt strangely quiet after the locksmith left. Not peaceful, more like a vacuum after an explosion. I walked through each room, half expecting Ethan to pop out of a doorway with another monologue about attachment wounds, but the silence stayed. For the first time in months, the space felt like mine again. I made tea, sat on the couch, opened my laptop, not to check security logs or scroll through the folder of screenshots, but simply because I didn't know what else to do. I'd blocked Ethan on everything the night before: Instagram, WhatsApp, text, email, even Venmo. But mutual friends talk, and by 48 hours later, they began forwarding me screenshots of his posts. First, a soft filter selfie, eyes red, expression tragic enough to win auditions. Then the caption: "Sometimes the people you love most can't hold space for your healing. I'm learning that not everyone is emotionally mature enough to understand trauma responses. Grateful for my support circle who sees me." I almost choked on my tea. The comments section looked like a live performance of his brunch group's group chat. "You're so strong. Proud of you for choosing you. Trauma responses are real. Never apologize for healing." And my personal favorite: "Some people just can't handle emotional growth." Of course, the post never mentioned cheating, or Sophia, or the months of lies. It was all cast as him being spiritually persecuted by someone who couldn't hold space. And because the internet loves a martyr, he got sympathy. But cracks appeared fast. Someone commented, "Didn't you just post anniversary pics with Winter like 3 days ago?" Another, "What happened though?" A third, "This seems vague." Ethan didn't respond. His choir of brunch apostles did, deflecting, tone policing, insisting he didn't owe anyone details about his trauma. I didn't reply. I didn't post anything. I didn't defend myself. But someone else did. On Wednesday afternoon, while I was neck deep in a network audit, my coworker Megan messaged me a link with, "Girl, you need to see this." I clicked. Jason Martinez, public Instagram, profile photo, a guy at the gym grinning. But the post he'd made 20 minutes earlier wasn't grinning. It was a screenshot of messages between Sophia and Ethan, blurred on the explicit parts, but still undeniable. His caption: "When your boyfriend's supposed work friend turns out to be the woman he's been sleeping with for 3 months. Funny how people preach healing while destroying relationships. At Sophia Thompson. You're not healing, you're just selfish." He tagged them both. He tagged mutual friends. He tagged their brunch group. He tagged half the city, I swear. The comments exploded within minutes. "What? Ethan? This doesn't look like trauma response. This looks like cheating? Oh my God, Winter deserves compensation." I sat back in my chair, blinking at the screen. Jason had detonated a truth bomb I never asked him to drop. And yet, I felt an irrational wave of gratitude. Someone else said it, not me, not angry, not bitter, just factual. I closed my laptop and went to refill my water bottle. When I came back, 3 more screenshots had rolled into my messages from friends. Sophia's Instagram went private. "Bro, his comments are on fire. I think Ethan's deleting comments." I didn't respond to any of it. I refused to get pulled into the vortex Ethan created. So when my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number that afternoon, I should have ignored it. But I didn't. "Hello?" I answered. A beat of silence, then, "We need to talk." "Ethan, I blocked your number," I said flatly. "This is my work phone," he snapped. "Winter, that psycho Jason is spreading lies about me online." "He posted screenshots of your messages," I said, "not lies." "You don't know the context," he said, agitated. "He's making me look like a villain." "You made you look like a villain," I corrected. "Jason just turned on the lights." He inhaled sharply. "Okay, listen. I need your help to manage the fallout." That sentence nearly made me laugh. "My help," I repeated. "Yes," he said urgently. "People are starting to think I cheated, which, again, isn't what happened." "It's exactly what happened." "Winter," he said through gritted teeth. "I need you to post something. Something neutral, like, we mutually decided to go our separate ways and wish each other well. Nothing dramatic, just enough to calm things down." "No. Why not?" he demanded. "Because that's not what happened." His voice cracked into a whine. "You're enjoying this. You're enjoying watching people drag me." "I'm not enjoying anything," I said, "but I'm also not lying to protect you from consequences." He tried again. "If you ever loved me..." I hung up. He called back immediately. I declined. He texted from the work phone. "Ethan, work. You're being cruel. This is cyberbullying. My therapist says..." I blocked that number too. Later that evening, another call came in. Unknown number again. I let it go to voicemail, but the caller left a message. "Hello, Winter. This is Linda Morales, Ethan's mother. Could you call me back? I want to understand what happened." I considered ignoring it, but curiosity, or maybe closure, won. I called her. "Hi, Linda. It's Winter." She exhaled shakily. "Thank you for calling. I'm sorry to bother you, but Ethan is very distraught. He told me you kicked him out without warning because he was working through trauma from his childhood. Is that true? I closed my eyes. No, I said gently. I asked him to leave because he'd been cheating on me with his ex-girlfriend for 3 months. Silence. I kept going. He kept his apartment across town. He wasn't homeless. He lied to me repeatedly, and then he said cheating wasn't cheating because it was a trauma response. A longer silence, then... He was seeing someone else? Yes, I said, for months. He told me you were emotionally abusive, she said faintly. I let out a slow breath. I wasn't. I just stopped accepting his behavior. Another silence, this one heavier. Finally, she whispered, I need to talk to my son. That's probably a good idea. We hung up. 30 minutes later, a mutual friend sent me a screenshot. Linda's comment under Jason's post, I did not raise my son to treat people this way. I'm deeply sorry to all involved. I stared at the message for a moment, feeling something. Not satisfaction, not victory. Just a steady settling inside me. A shift. A reclaiming. But I should have known Ethan wasn't done with me yet. The next morning, I walked out of the coffee shop near my office and froze. Ethan stood beside my truck. Same jacket, same sad puppy expression he learned in therapy or YouTube or wherever he gathered his emotional vocabulary. He straightened when he saw me. We need to talk, he said. No, I said, we really don't. Just 5 minutes, he pleaded. My therapist says I need closure. I met his eyes, exhausted but no longer shaken. You had closure, Ethan, I said. 3 months ago, in Sophia's bed. He winced. Can we not do this here? But he came anyway, falling into step beside me like a shadow I'd been trying to outrun. Winter, he said, voice softening. I want you to understand why I did what I did. I understand, I said. You wanted to sleep with your ex, so you did. It's not that simple, he insisted. My abandonment trauma creates anxious attachment patterns and... Stop! He blinked. I've heard every version of that paragraph, I said. It doesn't make cheating okay. It just explains why you justify it. I'm trying to take accountability, he protested. No, I said calmly. You're trying to explain away accountability. Those are different things. He swallowed hard. What do you want from me? Nothing, I said. That's the point. He looked genuinely stunned, like a man suddenly realizing his favorite tool didn't work anymore. We can rebuild, he tried. I'll cut off Sophia. I'll do the work. I'll change. Good, I said. Do all of that. For someone who isn't me. A long, trembling silence. His eyes filled with tears. Real ones this time, not the glossy, manipulative sheen he'd worn before. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. I'm sorry. I know. He exhaled shakily. Please, don't walk away. But I already was. My keys jingled quietly in my hand. The parking lot sunlight felt warm on my back as I walked to my truck. Behind me, I heard him whisper, small and newly powerless. I don't know what to do without you. For the first time, I didn't turn back. Ethan stayed frozen behind me in the parking lot, as if the asphalt itself had swallowed his ability to move. I didn't look back, not because it didn't hurt, but because I finally understood something. I had nothing left to give him, not explanations, not comfort, not the version of myself he needed to validate his storyline. I got into my truck, shut the door, and the moment the engine hummed alive, I felt my lungs expand all the way for the first time in weeks. Maybe months, maybe years. I drove away, leaving Ethan small and silent in the rearview mirror. For the next few days, everything in my life felt quiet. Not peaceful yet. Quiet like the hush after a storm when the air is still heavy. I went back to work, answered emails, debugged a firewall that refused to stay configured, ate lunch alone, and realized I didn't have to worry about what mood Ethan would be in when I got home. No tense silence, no walking on emotional eggshells, no decoding therapy jargon weaponized as guilt. Just quiet. And then the messages started coming in. Not from Ethan, he'd stopped trying. From everyone else. Mutual friends, co-workers who followed his social media, even one of his brunch friends, the one with glasses, Chloe, who wrote, Chloe, I didn't know, I'm sorry. He told us something very different. I didn't reply, not because I hated her, but because I didn't owe anyone a postmortem of my relationship. Not anymore. A full week passed before something shifted again. It was Thursday night, and I was reorganizing my kitchen drawers because stress makes me domestic. My phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. I sighed. Please don't be Ethan, I muttered. I answered anyway. Hello? A woman's voice, stiff, polite, familiar. Winter, this is Dr. Patricia Holland. I'm Ethan's therapist. I pinched the bridge of my nose. I'm going to stop you right there. If this is about supporting him or creating emotional space, I'm not... No, she interrupted, her tone unexpectedly firm. This is not that conversation. I blinked. Okay. I felt it was appropriate to let you know, she said carefully, that I've terminated my therapeutic relationship with Ethan. That I did not expect. What? I asked slowly. She cleared her throat. We had a session this week where he finally admitted to significant dishonesty, both toward you and within therapy. I realized he was using therapeutic language to manipulate rather than improve. That is not work I can ethically continue. I leaned back against the counter, stunned. She continued, I referred him to other providers, ones who specialize in accountability-based therapy. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Thank you for telling me. I wish you well, she said, and the call ended. For a moment, all I could do was stand in my kitchen and stare at the cooling mug of tea beside the sink. I wasn't crazy, I wasn't cruel, I wasn't emotionally unavailable, I wasn't the villain in his story. A licensed therapist had basically said, yes, you saw the truth. He just refused to. I felt my knees weaken, not in sadness, but in profound emotional release. The second shift happened the next day. Around lunchtime, Megan from work dropped into my office with her salad bowl and a raised eyebrow. You've seen Instagram today, right? No, I said. Why? She flipped her phone toward me. A grid of faces, Ethan's brunch group, 10 women total. 8 of them had unfollowed him. 2 had commented under Jason's post saying they didn't support cheating disguised as trauma recovery. Only Brittany and Mia, the loudest offenders, remained loyally orbiting Ethan's storyline. Even they were quieter now. Jason, meanwhile, had posted a smug gym selfie captioned, "Accountability looks good in the mirror." I snorted. Honestly, good for him. By week 2, the ripple effects reached deeper. Linda, Ethan's mother, called me again. This time her voice was different, soft, genuine. I spoke to him, she said. He finally admitted most of what happened. I didn't want to believe it, but thank you for telling me the truth. I didn't know what to say. I hope he grows from it. She exhaled shakily. I hope so too. My daughter always says therapy is a tool, not an excuse. Ethan still needs to learn that. I smiled faintly. She's right. After the call ended, I sat in my car for a long time, letting that sink in. Therapy is a tool, not an excuse. For the first time, I realized Ethan's mom saw the truth more clearly than he ever had. By week 3, my house had transformed. I replaced the lock plates, hung new curtains, rearranged my office so the desk faced the window instead of the wall, canceled every streaming service Ethan still used, restarted each subscription fresh with my passwords, my preferences, little things, but they made the house feel like a winter-only zone again. One night, I even slept diagonally across the bed just because I could. Then the last message came. Unknown number again. A new one. His third burner phone. I debated ignoring it. Curiosity won again. Text from Ethan. New. I've been doing real work. I understand now how wrong I was. I'm sorry for hurting you. I typed back one sentence. Good for you. Keep doing the work. Another message popped up immediately. Can we get coffee sometime just to talk? I stared at the screen for a full minute, then typed. No thanks, I wish you well. I blocked the number. And that was that. I didn't hate him. Not anymore. Hatred requires energy. Resentment requires attention. I simply no longer wanted him anywhere near my emotional ecosystem. He learned something from our relationship. I learned something too. People can talk about healing while harming you. They can recite therapy terms without living them. They can use trauma like a hall pass for cruelty. But boundaries? Boundaries protect your sanity more than any apology ever could. As I walked through my house that night, new locks, new silence, new peace, I realized something profound. Ethan wanted me to create a safe space for his trauma responses, but I'd finally created a safe space for myself. 3 weeks after the breakup, my house felt different. Not empty, clear, like someone finally opened a window after years of stale air. I could walk through my own hallway without bracing for the sound of Ethan's voice rehearsing monologues about emotional labor. I could sit on my couch without spotting a trail of his things, joggers draped over the armrest, his protein shaker abandoned on the coffee table, his laptop bag blocking the walkway like a territorial marker. It felt like my life had been rearranged back into something that made sense. I spent one whole Saturday cleaning, not angry cleaning, not heartbreak cleaning, just quietly reclaiming space. I found 3 of Ethan's overpriced hair products behind my bathroom mirror. I tossed them into a bag to donate. Even his scent clinging to the room felt faint now, like the fading echo of someone who'd already stopped being real. That afternoon, I changed the Wi-Fi name from Winter and Ethan Home to Winter Only Network. Petty? Maybe. Therapeutic? Absolutely. Then I went into my streaming services: Netflix, Hulu, Prime Video, every account he'd once piggybacked on. I clicked sign out of all devices. Each logout felt like dropping another emotional sandbag off my shoulders. When Netflix asked, "Are you sure you want to continue?" I laughed out loud. Oh, Netflix, I've never been more sure of anything. Meanwhile, Ethan's world was unraveling in slow, predictable spirals. Mutual friends kept me updated, not because I asked, but because gossip spreads like wildfire when the match is lit by screenshots. Apparently, after Dr. Holland cut him off, Ethan tried two more therapists. One gently suggested accountability. The other refused to treat him when he admitted he'd used therapeutic terminology to avoid consequences. Both rejections sent him spiraling. His brunch group fractured beyond repair. 8 women distanced themselves after realizing he'd shaped the narrative into something unrecognizable. Brittany and Mia, the last 2 loyal soldiers, kept defending him online, but their comments started sounding more strained, less confident, more like people protecting their investment in a sinking ship. Sophia and Jason broke up officially. But Jason? Oh, Jason was thriving. He'd turned the entire cheating saga into a gym comeback arc. His Instagram captions were practically inspirational posters. Betrayal is just pre-gain. Healing is heavy lifting. Accountability day, shoulders and truth. Honestly, I admired the man. Sophia, on the other hand, went completely offline for a bit, then reappeared with nothing but vague quotes about rebirth and cutting toxic people out. She didn't specify which toxic people, probably because there were too many to fit in one caption. A few days later, I got the most surprising call yet. Linda, Ethan's mother. "Winter," she said warmly, "I want to apologize." I blinked, taken aback. "You don't have anything to apologize for." "I do," she insisted. I believed Ethan's version at first, but when I confronted him, he finally admitted the truth. All of it. The cheating, the lies, the manipulation, everything. There was a brittle sadness in her voice. "My daughter once told me," Linda continued softly, "therapy isn't an excuse. It's a tool. Ethan's been using it wrong, and I'm so sorry you were caught in the crossfire." I felt something twist inside my chest, unexpectedly warm. "Thank you," I said sincerely. "That means more than you know." After we hung up, I sat in my car, staring at the sunlight on the dashboard. For the first time since this ordeal began, I felt fully validated, seen, understood, confirmed by someone who had known Ethan longer than I'd been alive. It was like emotional armor I didn't realize I needed. 2 weeks passed, then 3. Life got quieter, steadier, better. I went on 2 casual dates with different men. Nothing serious. Just coffee, easy conversation, no expectations. Both asked about my last relationship, and I gave them the same plain answer. He cheated, then tried to gaslight me using therapy buzzwords. Didn't work. Both men nodded. Both said something like, "Good for you for leaving." And for the first time, I agreed. Yes, good for me. But Ethan wasn't done, not entirely. Late one evening, a new text popped up from yet another unfamiliar number. Unknown. "I've been doing real work. I understand now that I was wrong. I'm sorry for hurting you." I stared at the screen for a while, letting the words sit there. Not because they moved me, but because of how little they moved me. Finally, I typed, "Good for you. Keep doing the work." He replied instantly, "Can we get coffee sometime, just to talk?" I didn't hesitate. "No thanks, I wish you well." Then I blocked the number. And that was the last time Ethan Morales ever contacted me. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel bitterness. I didn't feel the hollow ache I once feared would swallow me whole. I felt free. I understood something now. Healing isn't letting someone walk all over you because they can explain why they're doing it. Healing isn't accepting emotional shrapnel because the person throwing it says they were triggered. Healing isn't absorbing someone else's wounds until they become your own. Healing, real healing, is building a space where you're safe from the people who claim their trauma justifies hurting you. I stood at my front door that night, fingertips grazing the new lock. It clicked shut behind me with a soft, decisive sound. A sound like turning a page, a sound like a boundary holding firm, a sound like self-respect. My safe space didn't need his trauma. It didn't need his explanations. It needed only me. And it finally had that.